All right, we're talking about our discussion on sexual assaults that are committed by underage children to peers of the opposite sex. And it's a very difficult conversation we're having. In fact, it's not necessarily just based on that, but it's based on what is happening at our children's schools as we have this discussion and as we send them off to school at this point in time. In our C Point studio, we've got Dr. Sherman Mannah, who is the Director of Social Cohesion and Equity in Education at the Department of Basic Education. Vosloorus is my guest in studio, Government and Media Liaison Specialist at Sonke Gender Justice. Now, before we took a break here on the program, Vosloorus brought up a very, very interesting and I think vital point. He spoke about the fact that we needed to have social workers placed at all schools. It's a very important issue, but we don't have the budget to do that. And this is where I'm going to throw the question to Sherman. Is it possible that this can be done in public schools? Because, I mean, if just take the incident that happened last week about the rape. It's not only the girls that would need counselling, even though they've been asked to move to another school. What about the other pupils that were watching this? I mean, is this not something that can be put into the budget?
Thank you, Leanne. Currently, the department is developing a psychosocial support network for schools. Our colleague from Sonke Gender Justice was correct to say that there are challenges in terms of training, not just budget, but also training social workers. So currently we are looking at lay counsellors in schools, young lay counsellors to support schools in terms of issues around violence as well as gender-based violence. But it's not just about having social workers in schools. There has to be a whole school and a whole community approach to addressing issues of violence and gender-based violence in schools. Many times you might have the social worker in school, but when the child goes back to the home and the community, they are further brutalized or violated. So it's about how we're able to change the very nexus of the problem itself. One is looking at how we provide support to parents, communities as well, to be able to change the cycle of violence. Because the young boys who committed this crime were actually acting out what they see on a daily basis. So it's about how we deal with that as well, not just about the victims and those who witnessed the horrible act, but also to look at those young so-called perpetrators, as young as they are, and to look at how we can change that cycle. Because if we just add a band-aid in terms of doing counseling and ending it there, it doesn't change that cycle of violence that we find in our schools and our communities. So we need to go to the root cause and develop programs that are sustainable, that will change the value system of parents. And many of our children come from very dysfunctional homes. And how do we strengthen the protective factors in homes and communities to ensure that our learners don't act out the kind of violence they witness on a daily basis in their homes and their communities in the classroom? Yeah. So yes, we do need social workers, and it's extremely important, and the department is busy with that. But we also need to ensure that the vulnerability in terms of this occurring again is actually ended as well.
Yeah, let's look at the issue of this disjointed family unit that we speak about, and some of the horrific things that you've mentioned in your answer about some of these school children may possibly see these things on a daily basis and then act them out at schools. But what does, in your definition, in the basis of what the South African education system is, what is a school? How would you describe a school? Let's start there.
Well, a school, for one, is, the core responsibility of the school is teaching and learning. But a learner doesn't only come with his or her academic brain to school, but brings in their social dimension, their emotional dimension, and all their other vulnerabilities into the classroom. And then the teacher has to mediate that in terms of being able to have successful educational outcomes. So if a child was brutalized at home and comes to the classroom, they're not going to be able to perform academically. Indeed. So the school has to try and balance that. Yeah. And unfortunately, in our country, it seems like a large majority of our learners struggle with terrible vulnerabilities in terms of, poverty, violence, gangsterism, etc., teenage pregnancy, etc. So a lot of the time, the teacher has to balance the way they deal with the social and the emotional dimension as well as with the academic. And a lot of the teacher training has not actually been geared for that. So as a result, we find that many children slip through the cracks, and then we have the manifestation of violence that we have been seeing recently.
Okay, so
a school is almost a home for the child when he leaves, or he or she leaves home.
All right, we have to take a break now, but that really was the answer that I was looking for. The school in South Africa is a place of teaching, it's a place of learning, it's for social interactive, and it's almost like a second home for a child. That, in other words, should mean social workers should be mandatory in all schools so that they can go to their second home if they have a problem in their first home. Just like if they have a problem in their second home, they go home and they tell their parents. So I think that is one way of putting it, and Boyeseli is the man who brought this up. So I'm going to take a break here. We have to do news. I know it gets frustrating during these discussions, but that's what we got to do. We've got to stop for news, and then we're going to pick this conversation up once again. Please write to us. We'd love to hear your views as well.